Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Knife Chats with Tobias. Okay, this video is not about any of the knives you're seeing here. The reason these knives are out here is because these are basically modern folders. And there is a large community out there who have lots of modern folders, and they collect modern folders, and they love modern folders. But I'm not one of those people. This is probably some of the best modern folders I have. And I'm sure anyone out there is looking at that going, man, that is a dismal collection. And I agree. I am not the person to ask about modern folders. Matter of fact, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, can you recommend a modern folder to me? I would say nope, but I can recommend a couple people who could probably tell you a few things about modern folders. And I would address them to check out smkw.com. And I would also say, you know, if you're looking for a good YouTube channel on it, I'd say, go check out Big Red EDC. He's got the connections. He knows a little bit about modern folders. He's the man as far as I'm concerned. And obviously you've got the Nick Shabazes out there and everybody else, but for me, it's Big Red EDC. So what am I going to be here about? Well, first of all, I put these knives out here just so there'd be something to show. This is my Para 3. I think a lot of people in the world of modern folders would say, hey, that's an acceptable knife. This is by Artisan. This is the Corsair. This is my favorite right here. This is the Spyderco Dragonfly. And that tells you something about me and modern folders. We're talking about a lockback and just an itty bitty thing, and FRN handle, and a knife design that is well over 25 years old. And then this other one is just a Colt frame lock that I got for a cheap price. So, and it's a flipper knife. And we all know about flipper knives, and a lot of people in the modern folder world are like, no flippers, no flippers. But you know, that's me in modern folders. Like I said, I got a dismal collection of them. So what is this about? This video is going to be on traditional slip joints. And this is going to be part of a series that I'm going to be doing, and it's basically slip joint recommendations. Now, this first episode is going to be specifically geared towards the people in the modern folder world who are looking for their first traditional slip joint. Now, I'm talking about a truly traditional slip joint, so a traditional pattern slip joint, not a modern traditional slip joint or anything like that. Nothing in the world of modern at all. Because quite frankly, if a person in the modern world were to ask me, hey, could you recommend a good slip joint for me? I would say, well, it depends. What's your favorite brand of knife? Who makes your favorite knife? And if they were to say Benchmade, I said, well, Benchmade makes a modern slip joint. Try the Benchmade. Or if, you know, it's like Spyderco, I'd say try the Spyderco slip joint, you know, because most of the companies nowadays that make a modern folder also have modern slip joints out there. And so I would recommend that first, you know, try that first before deciding on if you actually want to try a true traditional pattern, because there are going to be differences between what the traditional slip joint is like and the modern slip joint. And that is part of the operative word here, is that it's a slip joint. So there's no locking mechanism on it like you have on this 5-inch lock back. So, you know, the blade does not lock like it does here. You have a locking mechanism that you have to depress in order for the blade to close, or a liner lock such as you have on this knife here. You know, something that actually protects you from the blade closing. And that's something, you know, I'm not sure every modern guy out there realizes that these are sort of traditional, but they're not a true slip joint. We're talking about a knife that if you are not careful, the blade will close on your hand, such as, well, we got this one here. So here's a slip joint. Notice there's no locking mechanism. Boom, it will close. That's the slip joint. The only thing that locks it is the back spring. So a back spring slip joint is what we're talking about here. Okay, so now we're down to the nitty gritty of what traditional slip joint would I recommend to the guy who is curious about traditional slip joints and is coming from the modern folder world. Now, one of the things that I hear most from the folks in the modern folder world is, why do you need so many blades on a single knife? And quite often, you don't. And so I don't know if the best way to convince a modernist to accept a traditional slip joint is to load them up with a bunch of blades on one knife. And so I thought where I would start is most likely with a knife with a single blade, no other tools or anything else. So a knife with a single blade. And I have a couple options here that I think I would go with. And obviously, because I'm only going with a knife with a single blade, I will do another video without the long introduction that's going to be on multi-bladed traditional knives for the modern folder guy. But these are the ones for a single bladed knife, for a single bladed traditional pattern knife for the modern folder guy. And I would love to hear what other people think. Is this a good choice, or is there some other knife you would choose that is a single bladed knife? A single bladed traditional slip joint. Now, coming in the fourth spot is the large Barlo, the Granddaddy Barlo, the Big Daddy Barlo, the Daddy Barlo, whatever you want to call it. This is the Barlo that is usually built on about a 5-inch frame and has a 4-inch blade. I think this would be an ideal knife for somebody just starting off in the world of slip joints if they're coming in from the modern folder world. Now, this is going to be a pocket full for them, and it might be more than what they want to carry, but it has a good size clip point blade, and this particular one is by Rough Rider. It does not necessarily need to be by Rough Rider, but I think a large Barlo might be an ideal choice for some people, especially if they're looking for a bigger knife. And, so the folks who like the Para 2 might like something this big also. But if they're looking for something smaller, then I would go with a good single-bladed Barlo, such as the English-style Barlows. I think these would be an ideal knife for the person who is moving in from the tradition, or from the modern world to the traditional world. This particular one is by A. Wright and Son, and it's a really well-made knife. It has a good lock going on, so the blade is nice and stiff. It's not going to fold on you too easily. And I would definitely tell them you need to learn that you're cutting down, you're not stabbing with it. Don't twist with the blade, it might close on you and stuff like that. There's definitely more safety features you got to do with traditional pattern knives, or especially the slip joints versus modern folders. Modern folders have a lot of safety features built into them. At least the good ones do. So, but these are two knives that I would recommend. Now, they're not necessarily my number one choice, but they are, I guess, right up there with it. I think a good Barlo, single-bladed Barlo is a excellent option to move into the traditional slip joint world. Now, if you can't find an English Barlo, they do make one. The Rough Rider Reserve has one too, and it has a nice spear blade on it. And if you're looking for something other than a clip blade, you might want to look at a spear blade. So that would be an ideal knife to me, is a Barlo. And you have two sizes to choose from. You have a 3.5-inch handle or a 5-inch handle. You might be able to find one in between, but those are the traditional sizes you see. The Daddy Barlows tend to have a 5-inch closed length with a 4-inch blade. The smaller Standard Barlo, you could call it, usually has about a 3.5-inch handle with a blade that's about 2.5 inches long. So these are more likely to be legal in more places. Now, I know the Rough Rider work knife has a very large following, and a lot of people love this knife, and it is pretty much a traditional pattern knife. A little bit on the modern side also. But the Wharncliffe blade, even though it has been around a long time, is not the blade that is most commonly associated with a lot of traditional knives, and it's also not the most versatile blade. But if someone were looking for like a Wharncliffe blade, then a suede back knife with a Wharncliffe blade is not a bad option. But that is not like your everyday, every use kind of knife. I know some people will argue no, it is their everyday, every use knife, and it could very well be. But I think clip blades and spear blades are more common and more traditional. Here is a case sway back, also a little bit smaller than that one, with also a Wharncliffe blade. But to me, this gives a false impression of what all traditional knives are, or what most people think of when they think traditional knife. These are a little more specialized. I think the clip blades and the Spearmaster blades are much more common and much more viewed as a traditional pattern knife blade. If you disagree with me, go for it in the comments below. Now, that brings us to the knife that I think is probably the knife I would recommend first to anybody moving from the modern folder world going into the traditional slip joint world. I mean, the truly traditional slip joint world, looking for a single bladed knife. And that knife is the one and only Sodbuster. I think this knife probably is the best option for somebody moving from the modern folder over into the traditional world, and they just want to experience what it's like to have a traditional slip joint in their pocket. I think the Sodbuster is probably the best choice. It is also one of the best priced options. Now, this is the case Sodbuster. It goes for right around 30 bucks. There are other Sodbusters out there, like the ones by GEC, that are approaching like $90. You've got Baron's Son that has one with 1095 carbon steel blades. It's reasonably priced as well. But you can also find the Chinese knockoffs that go for right there in the $7 to $15 range. So these are relatively inexpensive knives and a good knife to transition over to. And you got a nice big fat blade going on there. Some people will refer to this as a drop point, but it isn't. It's just a nice Skinner blade, nice wide belly going on there, and you've got a nice flat grind, something that a lot of people in the modern folder world like, that flat grind. Some of them do have a hollow grind going on with them, but it's just a simple, elegant knife. It's utilitarian. Can cut just about anything. This particular one's in stainless steel, the case one, and easy pocket dropper. Now, this is the standard size Sodbuster, so we're talking about something that is a little bit on the larger side. This is 4.5 inches or so, maybe a little bit more, like 4 5/8 inches closed, and it's got a decent sized blade going on for it. You've got a 3.5-inch blade, so that's something that a lot of people in the modern folder world, I think, would like. If this is a little bit too big, there is always also the Sodbuster Junior, which is the same knife that is shrunk down a little bit. And they do that with a lot of the traditional knives. They'll have a larger size, a smaller size, and sometimes they'll have a small, medium, and large. We'll talk about that in a later video, but you can see here basically the same knife, same simple elegance going on, but now you have a 2.5-inch blade. I'm sorry, 2 3/4 inches slightly less than that. You see it does have a little bit of a drop at the end there, but basically it's just a Skinner blade. Overall length there, 6.5 inches. And when we close it up, we're looking at something that's 3.5 inches long. So a nice little pocket dropper. And to me, this would be ideal. But if you need something a little larger, then I would go with the sod buster, the standard size sod buster. And yeah, they have them under different names and everything, but if you say sod buster, if you say you want the Bear & Son sod buster, regardless of what they call it, people will know what you want. And the thing is we're talking about a knife that can cost you anywhere from $12 to $100, depending on who's making it. So if you're moving from the modern folder world and looking for something, a single bladed knife in the traditional slip joint world, try the sod buster. You're going to be able to get it for dirt cheap, and you'll know if you like it or not. Any case, that's where I'm at. I'd love to hear what other people think, and if you have transitioned from the modern folder world and went in to look at traditional slip joints, I would love to know what knife you went for and how it worked out for you. If you're a traditional guy and you think you have a better knife to recommend to the modern folder guy, let me know. But for me, that's it, the sod buster. Let me take just a second to thank you once again for dropping by and spending a few minutes here at Knife Chats with Tobias. I really do appreciate it, and I do appreciate any comments that you leave. So please remember to give me that thumbs up, and also don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode is up and running. Thanks again for dropping by. Really do appreciate your time here.